Hi, I'm KT. This is the Hyper Rush 40, and I want to talk to you not just about this blaster, but about what Hyper means for family nerfing and as a parent. So let's talk about it. Hyper is the new big thing from Nerf, and while it's been covered really extensively on YouTube by a lot of amazing people, I wanted to provide more of a specific perspective as a parent for what it might mean for your kids, especially if you're trying to navigate the toy aisle in Target or Walmart, and your kids are drawn by one color or another and a different kind of thing, and you don't know what all the ammo types mean. Hyper is relatively unique, and it's brand new, and it's easy to not know what's going on with it right off the bat. I'm going to start with some sort of basic info on what Hyper is, and we'll talk about this blaster because it's the entry-level blaster, and so it might be kind of an easy go-to, but there are some things I think you should know before you make that decision. So let's get started. Hyper is a new ammo type from Nerf. It seems like it's their answer to paintball. I don't know if anybody asked that question, does Nerf need an answer to paintball? But we got it anyway. It seems like they're interested in offering a product geared toward competitive players. So it's quite different from stuff that they've had in the past. It borrows a lot of ideas from paintball and airsoft. You buy it in these canisters rather than in just like a blister pack that you pop open. The canisters can be attached to the blaster, so they're easy to carry around with it. They are extremely reminiscent of paintball canisters, and paintball canisters are something that has been used by Nerfers to carry rival rounds, which are slightly larger. The rounds go just in here and would tend to get dumped into blasters that used hoppers. Not all rival blasters used hoppers. Some, like the Nemesis did, you can simply dump these in, whoops, or spill them, and you're good to go. A lot of other rival blasters also use magazines or other methods to get the darts in, but paintball canisters were a good way to go. Nerf seems to have followed up on that idea and embraced it with Hyper. I really like this, and I think that this is pretty kid-friendly to be able to carry your ammo around and not have to wear a bunch of gear. What is the Rush 40? The Rush 40 itself is a sidearm type sort of pistol blaster. It carries up to 40 rounds in the built-in hopper up top. In the box you get this. You do not get an extra canister of ammo. You get some safety goggles, and you get 30 rounds. This size of blaster has its comparisons in a dart blaster like the Disruptor, in terms of it being a small blaster, or another one like the Hammer Shot. This is a very popular small sidearm style blaster. There's also the Nerf Chronos. I don't have a Nerf Chronos, but what I do actually have is this Overwatch blaster, which would hold 3 rival rounds. Take some of these ones that spilled. You just stuff them right in there. This one holds 3. The Chronos holds 5. Just fires like that. Size comparison here: 3 rounds, 40 rounds. 6 rounds, 40 rounds. It's kind of a no-brainer in that regard. Kids hate to reload. They hate reloading and they hate cleaning up. So it's very appealing to look at something and go, oh, I can put 40, 50, 100 rounds in this, and my kid can go nuts with it for a while and not have to deal with reloading or picking stuff up. They all come with 10 less rounds than they can hold. I think that there's 2 reasons for this. One, Nerf is wanting to make sure you have a smooth experience out of the box, and when you fill them up all the way to capacity, they sometimes have trouble making sure a dart actually chambers in the firing thing, and it's very frustrating to try to fire and just have nothing happen other than a loud noise. The other reason, of course, they're trying to get you to buy the ammo refills. And if you do get this blaster, I do suggest getting at least one of these. It's clear by the numbers. This is a 40 round capacity. It comes with 30. This is a 50 round canister. That's 2 full loads of 40. So it kind of makes sense. It does look kind of cool clipped on here. It's not very awkward. It's very light. It doesn't really change anything in terms of trying to use the blaster. You can't really put one up here for reasons that I'll show in a minute. You can put one down here, so you could carry, well, actually, I haven't tried this before, and I'm realizing that you can't really fit them in both places at the same time. Oh, maybe you can kind of squeeze it on there. Nope. But yeah, Nerf has a habit lately of not including enough ammo to fill the blaster and all the storage on it. So if it has the little ammo clips on the side, they may only give you enough darts to fill the blaster and then put them on one side of the clips. So this is in line with what they've been doing for a while. Admittedly, 30 rounds is a lot of rounds, but it's a very different ammo type than what we've been dealing with in the past, both in terms of how they manufacture it and in terms of its overall size. It also comes with this safety eyewear, which I think is actually a really great throw-in. This is not professional safety eyewear. I would not do any woodworking in this. It's too small for an adult. It's quite uncomfortable. But my 6 going on 7-year-old and my 9 going on 10-year-old put this on, and it was quite comfortable for both of them. Although my youngest said that it hurt his eyes and took it off. Although then later he put it on again because kids are fickle and they do whatever they want to do. But I do think that this is a good throw-in. Buying safety eyewear as a separate thing can be relatively expensive. Lining up again with my supposition that they're just trying to copy paintball, if you look on the edge of the box, you can see the face mask that they sell to go with Hyper. The similarity to a paintball mask is pretty obvious. They're going for that look, and the size of the ammo shows that, the canister usage shows that. It's just clearly their angle. Now, onto the issues of firing speed and pain, which are a big deal with kids. You don't want them shooting blasters that are going to hurt each other in a way that's going to make them not want to keep playing. Hyper rounds come out of the barrel of the Rush 40 at around the speed advertised on the box. The box itself says extreme speed up to 110 FPS, and that's about right. That's pretty fast. Other things that tend to shoot that fast usually are using darts, things like dart zone blasters. Darts tend to have a cushioned tip in some way. Nerf dart tips are hollow. Adventure Force and dart zone darts have these sort of waffle patterns that can give when it hits you. And so they tend not to hurt that much, even at relatively high speeds. I let my older kid fire this at me a few times, and I can tell you that through a regular t-shirt, it does sting. Like, you definitely notice it. An adult or an older kid is not really going to mind that at all, but it's enough that a younger kid, in my experience, is going to not want to keep playing. So definitely be aware of that. We did that at a decent distance. You can see the footage here. I don't think that that is an ideal situation with especially younger kids. So do not think that this is a blaster that's going to be comfortable for younger kids. It's enough to make younger kids fear getting hit. And once they fear getting hit, that always leads to a negative gameplay experience, and they're not going to want to keep playing. As to the operation of this blaster, you prime by pulling this entire piece of the blaster back, push it all back forward, and then fire. There is also a safety on here, which is to be left off when the blaster is not being used. You can refill the blaster by flipping this up and ostensibly dumping rounds in here, although in my experience it's pretty finicky. You can see that the mating in this is not very specific, and the opening is not so wide that it can just take large amounts of rounds all at once. They tend to sort of overfill and spill out, so you have to be very careful and metered with your dumping action. As to the prime strength, my youngest cannot prime this at all. Again, almost 7 years old. This is too much work for him. My older can with a little bit of difficulty, but once he got going with it, he was totally fine. So it is usable by someone around 9 or 10 or older. Really the tricky part is, and it states this in the manual, we're all trained by watching movies to prime a blaster to hold it up like this and look cool and go like this. The problem is the rounds have to fall into a slot in here, and they say in the manual that you need to tip it forward or hold it level to make sure that gravity can carry the rounds in there. Even doing that, I had a couple spells with maybe 10 or 11 attempts myself to get it to chamber a round where it just wouldn't do it. Sometimes 2 of them will get kind of jammed in the entrance there, and they just can't get past each other. which can be pretty frustrating. It is what it is. Every type of ammo has issues like this. This is just the new one for Hyper. They may improve it in later blasters. It's certainly not bad enough to not get this if you're otherwise considering it. The rounds are high friction, so they will rub up against each other and sometimes even clump in corners. You can see right now there's one stuck right up there in the hopper. You actually would have to open this with a long tool and poke it out to get it out of that corner. And so they can get clumped up in different places inside the hopper and get stuck. When you do get it to fire, it is quite accurate and quite consistent, and that's great. I can't speak to a competitive level. I'm not really a competitive Nerfer, but just in terms of my kids being able to hit me, he shot 3 times at me, hit me every time. He shot out into the field, was generally able to send rounds where he wanted to. It goes where it's supposed to go, and largely speaking, and that's great. That's a big problem with Nerf's dart products, where the darts are known to be very inaccurate and sort of fly off into the ether when they're fired directly at a target. For a dart blaster, it's easy to just get new ammo and find something that's more accurate, but for Hyper, there's no other option currently. It's a Nerf product. No one's made a knockoff yet, so luckily, the current ammo is quite accurate. That being said, I think the ammo type may still be the biggest weakness of this for family play. The rounds are small. They are devilishly small. If you compare them to a rival round, they're almost half the diameter, a little bit more than half the diameter. They seem unsafe for pets, so in our household with 5 cats, they've been banned completely from indoor play, in addition to the fact that they shoot hard enough and bounce hard enough. They bounce quite a bit higher, no, that one's gone, than rival rounds do. And so if they hit a wall or a staircase, they're gone. Pets are going to find them first. And so they are banned in the house for us. I don't suggest them for any area where animals are likely to find them or where you're not going to be able to retrieve 100% of your ammunition or very, very close to it. Outdoors, they can be very tough to track down once they've been fired. Although they're a bright fluorescent color, they have a tendency to sink down below the leaves and blades of grass as compared to rival rounds that are large enough to sort of sit on top of that layer. Nerfers have been using the medium garden weasel, this tool which is designed for picking up nuts and detritus from trees and bushes and plants. It does work on Hyper, it will pick them up, but it's not as consistent as it is with Rival. It has a lot of trouble getting the rounds once they've settled in below the upper layer of the plants, and once it gets them, it doesn't hold on to them consistently. Once some of the bars on this have become a little bit spaced out, it won't consistently hold them inside. They tend to fall back out. In our brief tests taking this blaster outside, we never had more than 10 rounds out in the field at a time, but we still managed to lose 2 rounds in our yard that have not turned up again. They're just hard to find. And we do daily dart sweeps every time we play outside, which is quite often. So we still have not turned up those 2 rounds, and I suspect that they are simply gone. It's not a huge sample size, but it's not very encouraging either. I know that a lot of people in spaces, especially outdoor spaces, have already banned the use of Hyper. I definitely see some possibilities for this ammo type, mostly centered around American Foam's discovery about them fluorescing. I can imagine, while it's possible to use a UV flashlight to root around in the bushes and find them after dark, what I'm really dreaming about is taking them to a laser tag arena and asking them to let us have Hyper nights. The ammo and the blasters look really cool in UV light, and they would look awesome in the air glowing. So that's something I'm hoping to look into. There is actually a surviving laser tag place relatively close to where we live, so hopefully I can make that happen and show that off. This would have to be a game for older kids and adults. Relatively high speed shots in relatively close range is not going to go great with younger kids, as you might imagine. So all said, what is my recommendation? I think the 14 plus age on the box is pretty much accurate. Sometimes, you know, Nerf has products like the Hammer Shot where a younger kid really can use this. The prime weight is not too bad. It's very easy to operate, and you're not going to hurt anybody with it. But with this one, if you want to consistently be able to prime it and actually play with it and have a good time and be responsible enough to track down all your ammo, I think you need to be slightly older. I also think it's important to make sure if you have other kids coming over to play Nerf with your kids, especially if there's older kids or just kids of any age who may have hyper blasters, be aware of them bringing them and what may happen with the ammo and how much of that may get lost in your property or how it may hurt other kids. I think it's a good thing to be aware. I wouldn't be afraid to put a ban on hyper at your property, at your house, in your yard, if you're concerned about that. If you want a blaster that can hold 40 rounds without reloading, try the Villainator, made by Dart Zone and sold by Walmart under the Adventure Force brand, or the Super Drum M2 or X2 or something like that, which is a Target exclusive made by Dart Zone as well. These are both great dart blasters that shoot about as hard as the Rush 40. They come with a ton of the Adventure Force darts and hold, again, 40 rounds per drum. You can actually get extra drums now, although the drums cost so much to ship that at a certain point you may as well just get a second blaster and have 2 complete sets. They are also relatively difficult for younger kids to prime, so be aware of that. It took a minute for my youngest to be able to do this one. This one, the Super Drum, is a top prime, which is actually a little bit easier and shoots just as hard. And has a built-in extendable stock. Of course, these are not as small as this. So if you want a smaller blaster, I would suggest tracking down a Hammer Shot. This is a classic smaller blaster that can be wielded by kids of many, many different ages, and will stick with them for a long time. A lot of more competitive Nerfers still use these as sidearms. There's also, of course, the Disruptor, which is frequently thriftable, but also still available new. 6 shots, prime and fire, extremely simple. There's also the Reflex 6 by X-Shot. There's also a very brightly colored Adventure Force version of this at Walmart. This is one of my favorite for young kids. It has an extremely light prime. I can prime this blaster with my pinky if I need to. Obviously, you're giving up ammo capacity here. None of these hold more than 6 darts, but it's very easy to just pick up darts and reload them as you go. I wouldn't let the low ammo count bother you at all. If you do wind up getting one of the Nerf brand blasters, I do suggest getting Dart Zone or Adventure Force darts. Accuracy is so important. If they try to shoot the Nerf stock darts, they will get frustrated. This has happened to my kids. When we switched darts, it all went away. They could shoot, they could hit things. They were very successful and had a ton of fun. If you have a kid who absolutely, positively must have a hyper product right now, and they are a small kid, I would somewhat counterintuitively suggest that you skip the Rush 40, skip the Siege 50, and go straight to the Mach 100, the flagship blaster of the Hyper line. It is big, it is heavy, and it is clunky, but it's full auto, and they love being able to walk into a field and just hold down the trigger and shoot a ton of rounds and walk around with this giant thing that's as big as they are. If they absolutely have to have a hyper blaster, that would be my recommendation. It's going to be easier. They do not have to rely on their physical strength to prime it, and they can just go out on the field and have a good time. So there you go. Those are my experiences, my opinions about the Hyper Rush 40 and Hyper in general as a parent. Again, I'm not a super competitive Nerfer, but I can see this thing having a place in the hobby for adults and older kids. It's a great blaster. It's pretty reliable. It holds a lot of ammo, and it is holsterable. But as a parent, there are some issues with Hyper in general. So I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that it helps you next time you're walking down the blaster aisle and your kids really, really, really want a new blaster and you're not quite sure what's what. I hope this narrows it down a little bit for you. If you like this video or you think it was useful, please hit the like button and feel free to subscribe. I'm going to do more stuff like this. I'm also doing some modding tutorials, and soon hopefully we'll have some sort of gameplay footage stuff. Be sure to subscribe to this channel for more guides like this, as well as other Nerf stuff, and I'll see you on the field.